And I want to welcome everyone to our second annual New Jersey Youth Transition Conference. Hopefully, you've been taking advantage of the other workshops that we've had yesterday and today. My name is Dawn Monaco, and I represent SPAN Parent Advocacy Network on behalf of the YTC Planning Committee. We will place a registration form in the chat box for you to share your contact information so that we can share the recordings and the resources with you from this workshop and the other ones. Please note, for those who are seeking continuing education credit, you are required to complete this form, as this is the contact method in which we will send you your proof of attendance. Today's workshops will be hosted via the same link you have joined with today. You can see the full schedule on our website, and I will share the agenda on this screen after the conclusion of this workshop. So I'm very happy to tell you that our presenters today are Johan Mora-Valverde, who is the youth coordinator for SPAN Parent Advocacy Network, and Dylan Campbell, who is the youth coordinator at Maine Parent Federation, both of which are parent centers. SPAN is the parent center in New Jersey, and Maine is the parent center, and Maine Parent Federation is the parent center in Maine. So we're excited to have Dylan and Campbell here with us today. So with no further ado, why don't you go ahead and share your screen, Dylan, and you can begin whenever you are ready.
Started off muted. So hopefully everybody can see my screen fine. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Dawn. I'm excited to be here today, and thank you for taking your time out of your day to see us. I know it's 7 o'clock, kind of an odd time for a lot of these meetings. So thank you so much for everyone that is here. So I'm here with my partner today, Johan Mora-Valverde. We've worked together for quite some time now, haven't we? And this is a presentation that we have put together to really talk about self-advocacy, but also diving into some of the skills on how to find supporters, build a support network for a young person. So I think Dawn gave a wonderful enough introduction for myself, but I'll hand it over to Johan if you have anything else to add.
Nothing else to add, just to say hi to everyone in the room. It is great that we are here tonight because Dylan and I myself, not to talk to Dylan, really do enjoy collaborating and bringing this information to parents, professionals, and families, and those who may be in the room.
Absolutely. So I'm really excited to show everyone what we have here today. And I really want to encourage people to utilize the chat box here. Try to make this as much of a conversation as possible, given the format. So let me bring up my notes here. So as we dive in here today, we are gonna go over a couple activities here, but then we also have a quick video that we're gonna show. It's about 6 minutes long. But we're first gonna dive into what is self-advocacy? What does that mean for a young person, and how can we help them build that skill? Then how do I self-advocate? So that's putting the pieces together. So we're going to break down the different components of self-advocacy, and then why should I self-advocate? So this is a big piece, especially when working with our young people. How do we get that buy-in to get them to want to learn about self-advocacy and to be in that role of making decisions for their future? And then we'll dive into planning for your future. So that'll be putting the pieces together. And we'll talk a little bit about how can you use self-advocacy for transition. And hand it over to you, Johan.
All right. Thank you, Dylan. Self-advocacy is the skill of understanding your interests and needs and effectively communicating those. So we're just breaking down sort of what the textbook definition for self-advocacy. Now, communication looks different for everyone. We all have different abilities, and communication comes in many different forms. Communication can be your own voice, visuals, or pictures, and communication devices, your gestures, body language, and behavior. These are all unique forms of communication that we, yourself, and an individual with a disability, youth and young adults, have unique to them. You are important. It is important to know that you are important. And why is that? Your thoughts, ideas, needs, likes, and dislikes are all important, as well as strengths and obstacles. These are all important to know. It is also important to know certain things about yourself, like things you are good at or the things you aren't so good at. And it's important to use whatever form of communication works for you to share this information with others.
Before I move on here, I think those pieces are really important there. Just to reiterate, I hope everybody knows that, they are important, but also, keeping in mind that communication really does look different for everyone. And then the way that we self-advocate, that's going to be different from person to person as well. So when I'm talking to youth, especially around this part in the presentation, I always like to let them in on a little secret. Because, guess what? Even if this is your first time hearing of self-advocacy, maybe this is your first time hearing those terms, I'm sure that you're a self-advocate in your own way. So have you ever asked a teacher to explain something you don't understand, or maybe talked with an adult about giving you more freedom and responsibility? Well, that really is self-advocacy. That's the basics of self-advocacy, and that's where we can start to build this skill from. So when we identify, hey, this isn't working for me, and then we communicate with others about that need, that really is self-advocacy. So I really want to put this word to that concept today. So if you're already doing those things, you're already on the path to becoming a great self-advocate. So the way that Johan and I usually talk about self-advocacy is we like to break it down into these 3 easy steps. And the first one is understanding yourself and your disability. So that's what we just mentioned about, knowing yourself. What do you want? And it's important to remember that you are, the source of information about all things you. But it's also important to know your rights and responsibilities. If you're a person with a disability, there are laws that protect you, prevent against discrimination. We don't ask you to be experts on these laws, but we do, it is important to be aware that there are laws that provide these protections. And then to put all this together, we need to be able to communicate effectively with others about what we need. So we need to know what we need, and then that communication piece is really how we're going to be a successful self-advocate. So diving in here with knowing your rights, I am, again, not expecting people to be experts, especially walking today on how to know your rights, but I do want to bring attention to this one big law here in the United States. So this is one law, the Americans with Disabilities Act. You'll often hear it called the ADA. And this is a civil rights law that provides protection to the people with disabilities. And the way that we do that is through something called reasonable accommodations. So quickly, maybe if anyone has ever seen these before, these are different, you'd often see these on signs posted in the community. These are examples of where accommodations are being put in place. So these are changes to really help all people, be able to have equal access to all these opportunities. So these changes, of course, are going to vary depending on who the person is and what their need is. But the important takeaway here is that there are laws to protect you against discrimination. And the next part here, I always love to say that you are the expert on yourself. Nobody knows you better than you know yourself. And so it's really important to communicate with others about what we need. So that can be our different support people, communities, parents, teachers, but how do we make others aware of what we need? An example I always like to give here is, have you guys ever played the game Telephone? Where you all get in a line and you have a phrase. So I love that because I think that's a great metaphor for self-advocacy, because there's you, your phrase, and then you have all these people around you. And when you play telephone, the phrase changes. We don't mean for it to change, but it does change. And that's very similar to how when we ask for support, if it's not coming directly from us, even if our supporters have great intentions, things sometimes get lost in translation. So you are the expert on yourself, and that's why it's really important that you're that primary source of information about all things you. So anything to add there before I go to the video, Johan?
No, just to always remember that really your needs and your wants are only expressed by yourself. Many others might recommend best steps for you, which is okay. But you at the end is always a great idea to know what you want, what you need, depending where you are, school, work, or any other environment, because you yourself are your best self. So I definitely support. Great point.
Nicely said, Johan. And then for everyone here, I'm going to unshare my screen real quick. But I have a quick video that we're going to play, about 6 minutes long, and it is called The Awesome Mary Show. So this is from the National Center on Health, Physical Activity and Disability. And I always show this video, and honestly, this 6 minutes it could replace my hour presentation here. But I think this is a wonderful summary of what self-advocacy is. So I don't want to give too much away, but I do want people to pay attention to what the guest speaker has to mention about why we talk about self-advocacy. So I don't think I hit the sound button there. So there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna start, and just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if it's not working.
Welcome to the Awesome Mary Show. I said I wanted to do the Ellen show, but maybe she can book me after Dancing with the Stars. But I still want to do the Ellen show. Just call my peach. We have a great show today. We're gonna talk about how to be a self-advocate. What does it mean to be a self-advocate? Our guest is gonna tell us. Please welcome Karen Cole. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Mary, it's such a pleasure to be on your show.
Let's get to the chase. What does it mean to be a self-advocate?
What is self-advocacy? So let's break up that phrase. So you have the word self and you have the word advocacy. So self is you, yourself, inside, your body, your mind, your spirit, how you think, your identifier. Then there's the word advocacy, which is defined as the act of supporting a cause or a specific proposal. In our movement, and when I refer to the word our, I'm talking about people with disabilities. Self-advocacy is literally the civil rights movement for people with intellectual disabilities, cognitive disabilities, and developmental disabilities, and basically all people with disabilities. It's about having the right to making your own decision without having undue stress or control by other people.
Who should be a self-advocate?
Everyone can be a self-advocate, Mary, and everyone should be a self-advocate.
Why is it important to be a self-advocate?
Self-advocacy is so important because everyone should have the right and the access to the skills that they need so that they can make their own independent decisions about what affects their own life. Historically, people with disabilities have been powerless, they've been isolated, they've been segregated, and they have been denied their basic human rights. They have been discriminated against, literally in every place and in every way.
When is it important to be a self-advocate?
There are so many situations where self-advocacy is important for people with disabilities. Where you wish to live, your educational process, your IEP, which is your individualized education program, right? Your voting rights, when you go to the doctor's office and maybe the doctor, he or she, is not listening to what you want about yourself. There's going to be times when you are going to be your best self-advocate when you are trying to get a job, or perhaps when you are trying to get some time off from your work to go to an appointment. And then there's going to be times when you're going to be the best self-advocate when someone's bullying you, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
So how should we start? What should our first step be?
It is all about getting those skills. There are many organizations that you can reach out to that can give you those skills. So the first one I would recommend is the SABE organization, which is, you can look at them up on their website, is www.sabeusa.org. Now, SABE stands for Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered. That's the first organization. Then you also have NICL, which stands for the National Center on Independent Living. Their website is www.ncil.org. And any one of those organizations, they also have local chapters. So when you reach out to the national organization, you can get information about where the local chapter is in your area to get these levels of empowerment. Within all of these organizations, you can find resources about how to speak up for yourself, finding out what your rights and your responsibilities are, problem solving. You can find information about problem solving, and most importantly, learning about what self-determination is.
If you had one piece of advice for an advocate, what would it be?
You know, my one piece of advice would be to remind you and to keep reminding you that you have the power to direct your own life.
Thank you for talking to us today. It's my pleasure. Kaylin Kolb, everybody. We're out of time at the Awesome Mary Show. We'll see you soon.
I see some applause in the chat there. But yeah, I think it's a powerful video there. It sums it up, but she really makes some great points there. I specifically love how she broke down self-advocacy and broke it into self and advocacy, because really that is what it is. And then when we teach people about self-advocacy, I think that's a really effective way to do so. So I'm going to jump back into the slides here. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Johan.
Thank you, Dylan. Why should I become a self-advocate? A great video, by the way. I put it in the chat for anyone to click on it if they want to share, or maybe they want to watch it in their own time. Self-advocacy is really a core thing, right? A core skill to know. It helps to empower you. And here, now that you're becoming an adult and thinking about your future, it's important for you to have a say in what you do and what you want. Being a self-advocate allows you to have independence, freedom, and responsibility. And it's also useful when you want to be listened to, when you are making a complaint, or when you are being assessed. When I advocate or communicate my thoughts, I am able to take control of my life and make decisions for my life. It's important to know that self-advocacy doesn't stop in one place. It can happen at home, at work, at school, at the hospital, at the doctor, at the mall, on a bus, and many more places. but no one else knows how you feel or what you think. And luckily for us, Dylan breaks it down in the next couple of slides of where self-advocacy is used. I'm able to pursue goals after high school, going to college, or getting a job in the career field I want. I mean, these are important decisions that are going to affect your adulthood or you being an adult. You need to tell people if you are not happy or you want something to change. I'm able to live as independently as possible in my own apartment or with my friends or family. Now you need to decide what you want to speak up about. And you need to plan how you're going to speak up. So sometimes that means doing the things you enjoy well, right? What do you enjoy? And I'm able to take control of my body and health, eat healthy, exercise, and have hobbies. So you need to believe you're able to do these things in your life if they're working or working towards those that are important to you. I think we might have gotten one slide to it before that.
Oh,
There you
thank
go.
you for that.
No problem. I am able to have relationships with people I care about, make new friends, or go out on a date. It's looking for the freedom to be able to make basic choices about your life. You go on to the next one. I am able to manage my own money. Very important point, because you need to be given the authority to be the expert on your life. You're the one who has to live your life, so you should be able to make decisions that affect you. And that means making goals, financial goals, having my own bank account, and save money for things I want to buy.
Yeah, thank you for those examples. I think it's really important because it really shows, all the different areas that it's important to be a self-advocate in. But also, you can learn from yourself. I always like to tell, young people that you can learn a lot about yourself from yourself. You can also learn about, what do you want to do for your future? And that can be a big challenge, when you're trying to be self-advocate, planning for your future, trying to identify what do you actually want to do. That can be a big step in itself, right? So I like this concept of using your interests to plan for your future. So how can we help our young people identify what they love to do, what their values are, and how can that always be at the core of our decisions being made? So your interests can help you set your different goals, and creating those goals can really help you make that progress towards your future. So some goals can be met in a short amount of time, and others are maybe more long. So, short-term goals and long-term goals. Some of these short-term goals, we can think about these as goals that we can complete in a relatively short amount of time. So that can be like learning to cook, learning to play an instrument, maybe not such a short amount of time, but learning how to use a public bus system. These are goals that we can relatively do shorter, right? Compared to what we would call long-term goals. And these are the big picture. So our short-term goals are gonna help our long-term goals. But these are the bigger goals, like maybe owning a home, having a job that pays well, traveling, exploring new places. These are the things that you can look out into the future and really aspire for. So I think it's really important to help, when deciding our goals, what do we really care about? What do we value? And that should always be at the core of our decisions.
The transition years, very, very, very important part when it comes to self-advocacy. And usually we break it down as this part as self-determination. Self-determination is self-advocacy, but the reason in the transition years is you're determining a lot of important parts of your life and what is to come, right? And they are when you move from high school to adulthood. And it's the best time to explore your interests, likes and dislikes, and start to plan for your future. It's important that your teacher, guidance counselors, family, and friends know what you are thinking. And when it comes to the transition years, I always like to use my younger brother as an example. He is at now 16, but at the time when he was 14, he himself, an individual with a disability, always had a problem choosing what he wanted to do when it came to school. And when he was given the choice to choose his classes and elective, this was a big part of now 16 in band class. But it was really him who at the time expressed what he wanted to do as an elective in school, making the decision, not me or my parents or anyone else, but just that small choice he did not shy away from. We asked him what he was interested in doing, and tried plenty of other subjects, which didn't go well. He is not a fan of cooking class, for example, but he definitely loved band. So these are times where he's exploring his interest, and this has taken him to more important choices in the future. So how can you advocate or communicate your ideas? You can talk, write, or type your ideas or questions. Here's where we go back to communication. The best way for you to communicate is going to be the best way because you know how or if you need help communicating or expressing these ideas to a teacher, a guidance counselor, or an IEP team. You can also participate in your IEP by sharing your interests, which we encourage here. Dylan, myself, and we encourage that you take a role in your IEP meetings, whether it's sitting in the meeting, whether it's observing, whether it's watching. We always encourage for you to speak or even lead an IEP meeting, but we know that might not be the best for everyone. It is very important that you are part of those meetings. With support, you can practice how you would communicate. Very important on the how, not everyone communicates the same. What you want your IEP to know. So again, very big step, especially for my younger brother, or one of the big ways that he took a step in his IEP meeting was making his own class schedule and choosing his electives. It might look very small to anyone else because this is sort of a process that others do. You know, I myself never had a problem choosing my schedule, but for him, it's a big step. And it's those small steps that become the bigger steps that develop your self-advocacy skills in the future. Yeah. All right, what are some supports you may need to work, to live independently, to get places, to make new friends? These are things you want to communicate and identify and even explain. For example, in school, you might need a quiet place to work. For work, you might need more support from a boss or someone at the job site to help you. To live independently, what is that? To make new friends, what is that? That might be making decisions between two or more choices and where do you want to spend time with friends? What do you want to do with friends? And that's sort of the first step into making these relationships.
I think it's really important here because, you know, we all ask for help when we need it, right? We all have our own support system and we don't always necessarily identify it. But I love the example of like, hey, I want to buy a car. Maybe I don't know a whole lot about cars. So maybe in that scenario, I might reach out to somebody I know in my life that knows about cars. I'm going to identify that support person that will be able to provide the best support. So it really is about identifying those different people in your life. And you know, it's important to you know, self-advocacy is really that skill of identifying what you need and then asking. So asking is a foundational piece of self-advocacy there. And you can utilize that all throughout your life, like Johan had mentioned. One of the things I especially like to always mention is that, of course, we should invite our young people to the transition meeting, but they can join at the IEP meeting at a young age. And that can be in any different, you know, capacity or form. You know, self-advocacy can really be about helping maybe a young child choose between an apple or, you know, a cookie for dinner. It's about making those decisions. And we can build those skills from a very young age. We don't have to wait until transition to start building those skills. So a couple of the examples here of how a person might see those accommodations we had mentioned is that individuals with autism, one of the accommodations they may ask for, that could be a quiet classroom or office space to reduce distractions. But maybe for somebody else, like an individual with a physical disability, that could be an accessible workspace or aids for writing or computing. So really, I want to emphasize that concept about how those accommodations are really going to be different depending on what that person needs and the level of support they need as well. So if this was a different format, I'd be having a breakout session or a conversation here, but feel free to utilize the chat box if you're able to. But what is an example of how you can self-advocate? And if you can't answer, think about that to yourself maybe. How or when has there been a time in your life where your needs haven't quite been met? How did you go about that? Did you communicate that well with other people? I'm curious. So if you want to use the chat box, please go for it. And this is a big piece here. And to be honest, I should have put this slide at the very beginning because everyone asks for help. And I just want to dispel the rumor that asking for help is anything else, but it really is a sign of independence. It's a sign of growth. It's a sign of building that skill of self-advocacy that we keep mentioning. So it's always a good idea to ask your friends, case managers, teachers, all those different people in your community that support you, for help. We all ask for help in making decisions, and it really is a sign of that growing independence. It's a sign of maturity. And looking at the time here, I think we went a little faster than had initially planned. I hope that's okay with folks. But we have talked a lot about self-advocacy today, but really I think the important takeaways from this presentation is that it's really important to communicate what you want and need, and then it's important to ask for help when making decisions. So to sum up everything we just mentioned into 2 sentences, we really hope that was that this can help you create those supports that you need in your life. Anything to add there?
Well, one of the things that I always like to add to this presentation is if you, yourself, family member, anyone around you that close and dear is self-advocate. It doesn't stop there. It's also how do you improve self-advocacy. And self-advocacy skills are skills that you develop through time. They're not something that you can have a year, 2 years, or there's the perfect age for it. It takes time. And for some of us, it might take more than others. And for some of us, we might have it down already. We might have that confidence and that self-esteem. But either way, we all as individuals and people with disability, all people with disabilities, need to continue developing self-advocacy skills, even as you grow into adulthood. And that's why we encourage young adults and youth to be engaged in the transition process, because helping the individual to identify future goals or desired outcomes in transition, it's a good place to begin. And really, it just builds self-awareness or self-knowledge, which is important in determining, there's the term again, self-determination, the direction that your transition planning will take. But there are a lot of tools available, which I know, Dylan, you have on the next slide. And even going to the next slide, why you want to go to the next. Dylan will break these down some more, but at SPAN and I know at NPF, we also have a lot of great resources that I will put in the chat and share with everyone. But really, it's just encouraging the individual. We might as always think about it as the students, right? So usually the transition process has to do with the IEP process, but it's also many, many other decision-making situations.
I love that piece you had mentioned about how everyone really has to build these skills, and no person is born with self-advocacy. So this is something that applies to everybody, and we all need to build this skill when making decisions for ourselves. And then especially, how I keep mentioning, plan early. So, even at a young age, you can help your child make those different self-advocacy skills, build those different self-advocacy skills by giving them different opportunities to actually make decisions, but also to make mistakes, because we learn a lot from our mistakes. So it's really about learning and being able to learn from that in the future. So these are some of those resources. These are the resources that were mentioned in the video there. I am a huge fan of this first one here. I go to them a lot for all different resources. They have some great activities on especially, developing a self-advocacy plan. I use that a lot with my work. Save USA, which, she had mentioned it, Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered, and then NICL, which is the National Center for Independent Living. These are all great verified resources, national resources, free to use for everyone here. And I just always like, to pass the baton here, but it really is, your turn to speak here. So taking this information, back to your life, how can you be a better self-advocate? And then here is how you can contact each one of us. So there's my information down at the bottom here for Maine Parent Federation. But I assume that you'll be connecting with Stan there with Don and Johan. So please, reach out to them if you have any additional questions.
Dylan, we do have a question in the chat box.
Yes.
So, and this is for both of you. What do you find as the biggest hurdle that individuals and families face when starting to become a self-advocate for themselves?
Oh, do you want to go for this, or?
No, sure. Dylan, go right ahead, and then I'll follow up.
I think really that barrier is that self barrier of understanding that, hey, I can do this. This is something that I'm capable of doing, and this is something that's important for me to learn. So I don't always think that it's a matter of fact that people don't know about self-advocacy, but I think it's a lot about that self-doubt, and we need to encourage and support to help support that self-doubt, to make that self-doubt become self-determination. At least that's my initial thoughts. What are yours?
That's great. And really mine is just not knowing. For me, and my personal story with SPAN is I did not know about SPAN, the Advocacy Center here in New Jersey, and the PTI, Parent Training Information Center, until there was trouble, right? Until there was trouble and someone recommended, and then we called, and it was a very unfortunate situation with my younger brother at the time, and we got connected, and before you know it, long down the road, I ended up working for SPAN. But the thing is I just didn't know, and I'm still not very surprised, and it's not very uncommon that here in New Jersey, when I introduce SPAN to others, to families, to our communities, they just don't know. And that keeps everyone isolated, right, in your family, because it's a hurdle. It's a hurdle to not know the supports and services out there that are meant to help you, and that are meant to be your support, that are meant to bring these trainings. It's very easy for myself to come to these webinars and talk about self-advocacy, but there are a lot of families out there that we are still working to reach, that are struggling and may not know about this, because they don't know that an organization like SPAN exists in New Jersey, just like a Maine Parent Federation exists in Maine. But we're here for you, and our warm line is here for you, and we're here to provide that TA, and to hear what you have to say and recommend. I also take a shot in the dark here, to everyone in the room, that it's at SPAN, one of the services and supports that has really helped our youth and young adults become confident with one another and overcome these hurdles and develop these skills, is our SPAN Youth Chats, which we host weekly, which is an open space for any youth and young adult between the ages of 14 to 26 in New Jersey, from 4:30 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. And that's a service and support that's free. It's open to registration, but it can help your family, getting through the hurdle of your youth and your young adult coming to these meetings, and developing confidence in and those that they can relate to know that there's a community out there that's here to support you. Great question.
So if I may, I just want to chime in for one other hurdle that I think we see a lot of, and I work directly with Johan at SPAN, is in order to really work on your self-advocacy skills, you have to understand what your disability is. And I think one of the hurdles and what your needs and what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And I think one of the hurdles that we see is the student not really knowing, or the parent not talking to the student about their disability, and them understanding that they have a disability. So, you know, when you think about it, if you have a student in high school and they have no idea they have a disability, they don't know how to advocate for themselves because they don't know what their needs are, or their strengths or their weaknesses. So I think a hurdle is, and we talk about this all the time, the importance of talking to your child about their disability as early as possible when you're comfortable doing that. So that might be a hurdle.
Great point.
But they're here, they're happy to answer any questions you may have. I mean, we have a little bit more time. So please, if there's anything that they can discuss with you, they're here.
Yes, please ask any questions. You
I
can
have
put in the
some
chat. I
comments
didn't.
coming.
Oh, go ahead.
Sometimes they send them to us, Johan, or they might send them to Dawn or myself, or you two as well. But I'm getting some compliments for you guys. One in exclamation points at all caps. This is a very nice presentation. And I agree. I've just by partnering with SPAN this last year to execute the conference, I was so impressed with how many different services that y'all provide. And I want, anytime I have a question or if I don't know who to turn to, I'm going to say, go to SPAN, because you guys cover all of the bases for families as well as for students and young adults that experience a disability. So amazing job. I also have a comment here. It says, let me scroll down, continue to share in social media. Districts should have this posted daily. So you also have somebody that has their hand raised as well, if you wanted to call on them.
Go ahead, you can unmute yourself. Are they, yeah, there you go.
Yes, hello. So I was kind of in line with what Ms. Dawn was saying, but I wanted to take it a little step further about another hurdle and what's really being done about that. And that's really understanding as a parent, not just your responsibilities, but what do you hold the district to with transition plans? Because, for example, you know, like you said, I told my daughter, she was sitting in IEP meetings 8, 9, and so forth. And I was, you know, been speaking to her and talking to her now. I mean, now she's 18, but I just remember always like trying to teach her life skills and taking her to the supermarket and, you know, how to pick sales. But I just felt like it was really something lacking with the school and just having that gray area of, okay, I'm a parent, I have responsibilities. Like you said, the student has responsibilities and rights, but how do you really hold the district accountable to those transition services and how to even implement them a little bit better?
So do you guys want to take that, or?
Yeah, I think I can try to wing that here. So just disclaimer, I live in Maine, so not New Jersey. But the way that I would approach this question is that I think it's important for parents to be assertive. And there are a couple of different ways to, you know, really do this. And I think it's important to be assertive because being assertive allows you to have your voice heard, but it also allows you to maintain that relationship. So I always like to put this into context of what does it look like to be an assertive, an aggressive, and a passive parent. So being an aggressive parent, you know, you can certainly get what you want, but guess what's happening in the meantime? You're damaging that relationship, that ever important relationship with that school. But being a passive parent, that can be great for the relationship, but not so much great for getting your voice heard. So how can you meet in the middle and be assertive there? So I'm not sure what the New Jersey state law is, but a little tip and trick that we would say here in Maine is, you know, bring out that law book of your state's special education laws. You know, bring it to the IEP meeting, you know, ruffle it up a bit, spill some coffee on it, make it look like you know what's going on. And then having that presence in the meeting can really help you as well. You can also have different support people. it's a best practice to inform the school, and you should inform the school if it's any type of legal person, but you can invite a support person with you to help guide your thoughts, to make sure that all your different points are being met. I'm not sure if SPAN has a program that helps with that, but certainly, you can do that as well. Anything to add to that? Johan?
Great points, Dylan. And, I agree, each Board of Education, it's really responsible for that development and review, that plan for students. And if there's anything, and I know Dawn will touch more what we provide as a service here at SPAN, but if there's anything we know is that really the first advocate in the room tends to always be the parent and guardian. Not only teaching these skills, but also making that presence at an IEP or holding the district accountable, because these are things that they need to provide, and these are things they need to be a part of. And it's not as easy as it goes. My personal experience, it took a lot of phone calls, and it took us having to call SPAN for us to know, for the template that was provided with SPAN at the time, on how to write an email to the district in order to remind them what the law is in New Jersey, in order to tell them what needs to be done, in order to give them instructions, because many of them just may not even know, exactly how to approach the situation. But these are many different steps that we had to take, just for us and my family to have an IEP, for the development to even start. So it's not an easy process, and it's not a process that I would say it's easy, even though it's the law, and it follows IDEA and New Jersey State. But SPAN does provide a lot of resources on that. But I'll give it to Dawn as well, who has a lot of experience working with these families closely.
So both of you hit it right on the nose. As Dylan mentioned, every state adapts the IDEA, which is the federal law, to their own laws. In New Jersey, it's the New Jersey Special Education Administrative Code. And, that has to be followed. So yes, you should be aware of that. You should understand it yourself, so that you know what to push for. And just understanding when it comes to the transition plan, that plan is supposed to take your child, your student, your young adult from 14 to out of high school. And what is that goal? And what do we need to work on? And as Dylan mentioned, you are an equal member of that team. What needs to be worked on so that your young adult can become a productive adult after high school, whether they're going to go to work or they're going to go into post-secondary education or whatever it is that they're going to do after high school. What do we need to put into that IEP transition plan to make sure that they will make that successful move from high school to adult life? And of course, we will put our phone number in the chat. We are always there. We have a warm line. If you have questions, if you need assistance on your next IEP meeting, if you had a meeting and you don't know how to respond to them, whatever you need assistance in, call us. They'll take down your information and someone will call you back, and you could call us as many times as you like.
Right. Let me
I hope that helps.
I thought that was a wonderful summary, Dawn. And it brought up another amazing point. We can keep going down these rabbit holes, but really that transition plan, it should be based off the goals for the future, right? And it should be based off those goals for what the student wants, but not necessarily the academic goals. So those academic goals should be, they should definitely, be there. But those should, I don't know how to put it the way I said it in my head. The goals for post-secondary should really take priority, because those are what you're really trying to plan for, right? Those are the skills that you're trying to build for the young person for after high school.
Right.
Hopefully,
and as you said, if they need life skills to help them to become a productive adults, then they need to be addressed in the IEP meeting in the transition plan.
Great. And I'll put in the chat SPAN's guide to IDEA. Don really spoke about that, which is very important, is that we definitely need to know what that is,
Yeah,
and what
so
that means.
Make sure Amy just put in that there is also a presentation at 7:15 on Thursday, which will talk about personal experience with their son. So that's great as well.
Absolutely. It's a great follow-up.
Johan and I will be presenting tomorrow. tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 10.
The importance of the student voice also in the IEP process. So maybe, we'll see you there. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about student-led IEPs. And then there's another one, 2 other workshops that SPAN will be doing. The agenda's there, so. Any other questions?
Hi, yeah, excuse me. Hi, I just have a quick question regarding, so my daughter's now 18, she's still at the school. I guess I'm not clear on, does the IEP apply? She's in the program, the extended program. She graduated at her school, is called the SCOPE program, which she's allowed to stay on for what, age 21?
Yeah, so she's in an 18 to 21 program?
Yes, so
Okay.
does it apply the same
Yes,
as far as
Yes.
like what we're, I guess, trying to accomplish as far as the goals, the accomplishment,
Life
what the
skills.
school, life skill, and what the school
Does she still
is?
have it? And is that still in the IEP?
Like, is it still the individual IEP?
yes,
Just
yeah,
extended?
so that program for 3 years, you still have your IEP, you still have your transition plan, all that information is still in there. And most of those 18 to 21 programs will work on life skills and work skills, employment skills, and there'll be a goal for what happens when your child leaves at 21. But again, if you don't understand that and you need help with that, give us a call. Someone will help you to understand that further.
Now I feel like it's crunch time and I want to maximize whatever we can get to get her, more developed for the world, so to speak.
Absolutely, yes. You're right. I mean, it's that you have 3 more years, and depending on the type of disability that you said daughter,
Yes,
what she has, if she has a developmental disability, she's going to require help from the Division of Developmental Disabilities. You have to understand that process. And that requires you understanding Social Security process and Medicaid and all of that, depending on her disability. So there's lots of things that you may need to know. And if you're not sure if you need to know them, again, if you call, you will get someone who will walk through that IEP with you and understand what you need. And they'll get you the resources and the information to help you.
They're gonna post it.
okay, and you're gonna post your contact information.
Yes, there's Johan just posted the phone number. If you call that phone number and you tell the receptionist, I need to speak to someone, I have a question about my child's IEP or whatever it is, she will take down your contact information and then someone will call you back within 48 hours. And then you can talk to them as long as you need to talk to them.
Absolutely. Put the number in again in the chat, but I'll also put our info at SPAN Advocacy email, and then our website, which you can find the contact.
And I live in Maine, but I'll put my contact information as well. So feel free to reach out if you need any services in the north.
Yeah, so understanding that we're considered New Jersey's federally funded parent center. There is one in every state. So we're New Jersey's. And what we do is we provide information and training to parents who have children with special education needs, special healthcare needs. We have lots of different programs at our agency, but there is one in every state. So if you should move out of state and go to another state and you need help, there's a wonderful website. It's called parentcenterhub.org. We'll put it in the chat. And that site can give you just look up the parent center if you're moving to Florida and you need information in Florida, you can find the parent center in Florida. So there's one in every state to do exactly that, to help parents who have children with disabilities that require special education help or special healthcare help. We will help you with that.
Great point, Don. I put that in the chat as well. The opening page, you can find your parent center in all states and some in the territories.
But, the idea and the reason why we wanted Dylan and Johan to come present tonight is because we're really looking to reach the young adults. And what's the best way to reach the young adults is with young adults. So, Johan and Dylan can relate to the young people that they work with, helping them to understand, the importance of understanding their disability, because if you cannot, when you go into the workforce and you have a disability, like Dylan had mentioned on that one slide, and you want to ask for an accommodation, you have to be able to disclose your disability to them. I have a disability and I require X, Y, and Z. Now, if you don't even understand your disability, you have no self-advocacy skills, how can you disclose your disability? And if you get fired because of that disability, but you never disclosed it, you have no leg to stand on. So everything begins with understanding your disability and then learning how to advocate for yourself. And, sometimes I'll have a parent say, well, my son is too, quote unquote, low functioning for that. There's always a way for us to work together to get the young person to understand, whether it's through a communication device or there's just always a way. It may be different. It may be different. I have a son who's 24 on the autism spectrum. My son may be different than yours, but we could still work with them, to provide respect and to honor them and how they feel. And I think we're almost done. Unless someone has
Don,
another.
we do go more into that information in our
Which one?
presentation tomorrow at 10. So I really do encourage anyone here who is joining us tomorrow. You have the time to join us at 10, and we'll break it down more. We'll have Dawn leading that presentation, so it's a lot more information to share.
I just wanted to thank everyone again tonight. Great conversations we're having here. We really could spend all day talking about this, and I really encourage you to reach out to SPAN, for additional information. Do you have a parent support program?
So, you mean like a support group?
I guess maybe. So we have our Family Support Navigator program. I was wondering if you had an equivalent for parents to maybe have a support person to connect one-on-one with.
So we do have a program, the SAVA program, but I'm not sure if that's continuing. But most of the support that we provide is through our warm line, and then through the trainings that we do. I posted our website, and there are many different trainings and workshops that we provide. Everything is free of charge to families. So I encourage you to check out the website and look at our events calendar. There's lots of different workshops that we provide. If you need help understanding your IEP, come to an IEP workshop. We go through all the different components in the IEP so that you understand, because it's not just good for you to know that your child has an IEP. You need to understand the guts of the IEP, because that's where we make sure that our child's needs are being met. So we have workshops to help families with that. So definitely check out the website if you have never done so.
Right. And I just want to clarify, I had to double check because I have it on 10 as on my personal calendar, but that's so I don't schedule anything too close to the presentation. But Dawn's presentation tomorrow is at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you'll be joining on with the same link that you joined on today. So
and the agenda is in the agenda is in the
put it in the chat as well.
So I just want to this concludes our workshop. I don't think there's any other questions. I want to thank Johan Mora-Valverde, who's our youth coordinator at SPAN, and Dylan Campbell, who's our youth coordinator at Maine Parent Federation. They've done other workshops together. They take this on the road. They're great. They work really well together. So I'm glad they were able to come tonight and to present to you. The workshop is being recorded, and it will be made available on the website in November. So if you want to access that again, check that out. And then again, if you require continuing education credits, you will receive an email soon with your certificate. You had to fill that application out, or the sign-in out. I think that the link was here, but I do believe that you received it via email as well. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at njyouthtransition@gmail.com. There's the sign-in sheet. It's in the chat. So if you need those credits, the continuing ed credit, you have to fill that form out, because that's how it's going to get sent to you. So Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. We hope to see you at other workshops the rest of the week. We have many different coming up, lots of different great topics. So please check out the agenda, and we hope to see you during the week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.